The Mets are on a 5-game winning streak. Luis Severino pitched a gem. Francisco Lindor continues to do MVP things. And Kodai Senga could come back as a relief ace. We got a lot to discuss on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The New York Mets have now won 5 games in a row. They opened up their homestand against the Boston Red Sox and got another great pitching performance. This one from Luis Severino. The bullpen had a good day. They only had to cover 6 outs thanks to Sevy, and they got the job done. And Francisco Lindor continued to do MVP things as the Mets, as a team, just kept things rolling. They got on the board in the second inning as Jose Iglesias and Jeff McNeil led off the inning with the pair of singles. Then Starling Marte hit into a double play, but Iglesias scored. Third inning, Francisco Lindor singled and scored on an RBI double by Brandon Nimmo. Fourth inning, DJ Stewart, that's right, DJ Stewart's back. JD Martinez on paternity leave, so Stewart's got a couple-day cameo here. And shockingly got the start in left field tonight. Which I know surprised a lot of people as Mark Vientos was on the bench. Iglesias started at third, McNeil at second. You could have, if you wanted to, started Vientos at third, put McNeil in left. But I don't know, maybe Brian Bayo had great numbers against Vientos in the minor leagues for all we know. Regardless, they decided to go with Stewart in left, Winker at DH. I think the thought process there was Stewart would come out of the game at some point for Harrison Bader or Tyrone Taylor, and he did. But he also helped out in this game. Fourth inning, he started off a 2-out rally with a single. Luis Torrens drove him in with a double, and then Torrens scored on a base hit by Francisco Lindor, who went 2 for 3 with a run scored, an RBI, and he got hit by a pitch, so he got on base 3 times. As a team, the Mets got 8 hits, walked twice, scored those 4 runs. Torrens got the start over Alvarez and had a multi-hit game. It'll be interesting to monitor the playing time of those 2 guys moving forward. Alvarez is going to continue to get more of the work. The Mets love his leadership, what he does for the team behind the plate, and there's still that ignitability that we know is in there, buried deep down because it's been a rough season for Alvarez. But if Torrens is swinging the bat well and what he does to control the running game, it could become more and more of a 50-50 timeshare depending on how the rest of this month shakes out. But I'm bearing the lead because while Lindor continued to have great play, and I wanted to talk about him at the top of the show, we're going to talk about him a lot in the middle of the show today. Luis Severino was the MVP of the game, okay, because he got the Mets through 7 innings, and really, it could have been 7 scoreless because the 1 run he gave up was in the 3rd inning. And honestly, if Harrison Bader or Tyrone Taylor was playing in center, probably does not give up any runs. There was a ball hit to shallow center, Brandon Nimmo coming in on it, and Nimmo is still, if you watch him, tentative to really lay out hard and dive for the baseball because of that shoulder injury. He doesn't want to mess up that shoulder again, and rightfully so. But if that's the case, maybe he has to judge those balls a little bit better. It would have been a better call to just lay up there, let the ball drop in front of him, field it, just let it be a single, because instead he tries to dive, ball gets under his glove, rolls all the way past him almost to the warning track, and it is a triple instead of what could have been just a single. Or again, if there's a different center fielder out there, probably would have just been an out. That run scores as the Mets infield was drawn in against Jarren Duran. He singled, with the ground ball. Actually got thrown out at second. A horrible base running decision. But regardless, that was the only run that Sevy gave up. Other than that, he scattered 6 hits and 2 walks over 7 innings, struck out 5, ends up at exactly 100 pitches. Just a really solid start from Sevy. He was attacking the zone. He was pitching to contact. His defense in the infield was playing great behind him. There was a fantastic play to end the 6th inning, I believe, by Pete Alonso. Was that the 7th inning? It might have been the 7th inning. Regardless, Alonso made an awesome play on a ball that hopped over the bag, and he, diving to his left, throwing it to Sevy. You saw Iglesias turning a double play. Lindor, of course, always making his presence felt on the field. So the infield was good behind Severino. The outfield really wasn't, because there was that misplayed ball by Nimmo. There was one misplayed by DJ Stewart. Two of those hits could have been outs. So Severino really did a nice job as he continues to rack up innings for the Mets. And they're going to need that version of him down the stretch, because it's very clear that this team, while they will go as far as Lindor will take them, it's also going to come down to the top three in this rotation. If you want to be a team that has a 600 plus winning percentage in this final month to get into the playoffs, 3 of those 5 starters have to be nails. And we've seen it with Sean Manaea. We've seen it with David Peterson lately. Luis Severino has been the missing piece. He's had some good starts, some a little more average. This was a very good start. Hopefully he can build off of that down the stretch here. Now, the bullpen was good again as well, and they did not have Edwin Diaz available. So in the 8th inning, they went to Danny Young, who pitched a scoreless inning. It did get dicey. After he struck out the first 2 batters, he walked a batter. He hit Tyler O'Neill with the back foot slider, and we see that from Danny Young a lot. He has a very, very nasty slider with a ton of horizontal movement. But when you got a righty in the box, we've seen it time and again where he can just tug that pitch, and all of a sudden it's hitting the guy in the foot. And you had runners at first and second. He threw a wild pitch then, next batter. So it's runners at second and third with Rafael Devers up. But Carlos Mendoza was going to stick with Danny Young with the lefty batting, and he got a ground out to get out of that inning. Then Phil Maton comes on for the 9th, and he has just been unbelievable for the New York Mets. If you want to quibble about David Stern's acquisitions at the actual deadline when it comes to Ryan Stanek, Huascar Brazaban, and Tyler Zuber, who we haven't even seen, he's been in AAA. Yes, those guys have not really lived up to the promise of being potential late inning options for the Mets. But the guy they got earlier in July, Phil Maton, has been everything to this bullpen. It's very similar in my eyes to when the Mets picked up Addison Reed in 2015, where that was the sort of under the radar addition, where it was, okay, they picked up Reed. How is that going to work out? And the guy just continued to execute his pitches, throw strikes, and get big outs for the Mets. Maton is doing the same thing. He's now pitched 22 games for the Mets, has a 1.77 ERA in 20 and a third innings pitched, 22 strikeouts, just 5 walks. And then, of course, tonight, he gets the save, striking out 2 in a perfect 9th inning. So great job by Maton and even Danny Young to close out that game. Severino with a very strong start, and Francisco Lindor, Luis Torrens, amongst others, getting the job done offensively. I want to talk about Lindor a little bit more in the next segment. I believe Shohei Ohtani is blinding people with these gaudy stats, and they are missing the picture on what Francisco Lindor is bringing to the Mets. And I want to make the MVP case one more time of many times down the stretch. So we'll do that in the next segment. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The New York Mets only have 12 more home games this season. Don't miss out on your chance to catch what has been one of the best seasons this franchise has had in some time live. You want to watch this team. They have earned that. So get out to the ballpark with Game Time, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, because Game Time Picks is going to filter out the fluff and show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You can view your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You also have the toggle feature that you can hit, where you can see all-in prices up front, so you won't be surprised by hidden fees when you go to check out. If you want to go to a Mets game down the stretch, make sure you do that with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaway, and you get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day, so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com facebook.com/LockedOnMets. Now, it was August 23rd, not quite 2 weeks ago, when I published an article for Just Baseball titled, "By Definition, Francisco Lindor is the real NL MVP," and I've only been more emboldened by my take as I have watched game after game unfold where Lindor is locked in the midst of a hitting streak, doing everything for the New York Mets, and on the other side, Shohei Ohtani continues to hit home runs and steal bases. But I don't think that those two stats alone should carry a guy to an MVP when he doesn't have to play defense and when he is on the best team in baseball with two MVPs literally behind him in the lineup. Francisco Lindor's got Brandon Nimmo batting behind him with a 747 OPS, and there has been times when it's Mark Vientos, a guy in his first full season. Ohtani, it's Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. These guys are playing a different game. Shohei Ohtani, if you were doing this on MLB The Show, is playing rookie mode. It's easy to steal bases. He's that athletically gifted. And if someone makes a mistake, he puts a good swing on, it's going to go out. He is bigger, faster, stronger than almost anyone in baseball, probably not named Aaron Judge. And he's faster than Aaron Judge. Now, you look at Lindor. He's playing on Hall of Famer superstar mode, okay? He's got a team behind him that obviously has talent. They are a great team, but he has been the driving force to make them a great team. He has been the unifying leader that has held everyone accountable and has set the tone at the top of the lineup. He also has to play defense, and he's the one guy in the lineup that teams might try to pitch around because there isn't a ton of guys behind him that can hurt you in the same way. Well, there are guys that can hurt you. I don't want to, just go so far in on this take that I am belittling the rest of the Mets lineup because they do have a good lineup. It's just not what the Dodgers have with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. And I want to talk about tonight's game for both teams because it's a perfect encapsulation of what this race looks like to me. The New York Mets win by a score of 4-1. Game was tight the whole way. Now, the game was tight for large portions for the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks, but they win by a score of 11-6. Shohei Ohtani went 2 for 4 with 2 walks. He scored 2 runs. He stole 3 bases. Behind him, Mookie Betts went 2 for 4 with a walk, 3 runs, scored 3 RBIs. Freddie Freeman hit 2 home runs, drove in 5 runs, and Teoscar Hernandez was 5 for 5. There is so much firepower in that lineup. That, in my eyes, minimizes a little bit Ohtani's impact on being the most valuable player. And maybe I'm wrong to say that, the guy that's on the loaded team doesn't deserve as much credit. You might just say best player on the best team. But when the best team has 3 best players, it's not as valuable as the team that clearly has 1. And then we talk about the statistics, right? You look at this case, and I made it a couple weeks ago, but I just want to reiterate some points from it. From July 1st through play on Sunday, because this didn't have the stats from today's game on Fangraphs when I sorted it as I was doing research for the show tonight. So since July 1st through September 1st, Francisco Lindor is pacing the National League with 3.7 wins above replacement. That is over a win better than the second best guy, which was Brenton Doyle, and a 1.5 better than Ohtani. Lindor has more RBIs during that span, the same amount of runs scored, on a worse team with 17 less stolen bases. So you think about the fact that he has scored the same amount of runs in that 2-month span when he's not stealing nearly as many bases as Ohtani. And obviously that is partially due to the guys behind you. But to me, it just shows you that as much as that stolen base stat is so heavily in favor of Shohei Ohtani, Lindor is still scoring as many runs during this important stretch of the season. Francisco Lindor, since July 1st, has a better batting average, better on-base percentage, and a better WRC+. WRC+ is an all-encompassing stat that measures hitters on a league average of 100. Lindor's been better in an all-encompassing offensive stat despite all the home runs from Shohei Ohtani. Then we talk about the stats since August. Francisco Lindor told Jeff Passan, MVPs are won in August and September. And I will actually point out, too, Lindor is doing all the right things on the media aspect of this as well. He has done interviews with the 2 most influential insiders, journalists, whatever you want to call it in baseball, Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal. These guys have big readership and they have some sway. So Lindor's playing the game a little bit, and rightfully so. He deserves it. And all he did is accept the interview request. But the interview request came because of his play. Now, again, he told Jeff Passan, MVPs are won in August and September. Shohei Ohtani in August hit 12 home runs and was 15 for 15 in stolen base attempts. That's crazy impressive, right? He also hit 235 and got on base at a 286 clip. Francisco Lindor paced him in OPS by 50 points, in batting average by 90 points, hit well over 300, in on-base percentage by 86 points. Lindor's in the 370s with his on-base percentage. This is in August. Ohtani in the 280s. And in WRC+, again, a stat measuring hitters on a league average of 100, Lindor was 27 points better, 27 points better than Shohei Ohtani. All right, so August, in my eyes, Lindor won the month, but not in the narrative. Because the narrative just sees the stolen base number climbing, the home run total climbing. He might get to 50 and 60, 50 home runs, 60 stolen bases. And in that world, no one's going to vote for Lindor over Ohtani, even if Francisco Lindor finishes with a higher wins above replacement and he did more for his team. And it's a damn shame, and I will die on this hill. Shohei Ohtani hits every mistake out. He is an automatic stolen base. He's playing on rookie mode, man. And yeah, at the end of the day, the stats are going to tell the story in any MVP case. And Ohtani's stats might be too compelling for a voter to ignore. But I'm looking at a guy in Ohtani who's the most naturally gifted player in the sport. More athleticism than pretty much anybody else. Playing on a team where the game has been made easy for him. If Shohei Ohtani was doing this on the Angels as a DH, 50 home runs, 60 stolen bases, and the Angels were a winning team even, just a winning team, with all the other slop around him, I'd be like, yeah, of course. But Ohtani's not doing this on the Angels. He's doing this on the Dodgers, who are penciled in to win 100 games every single season. Has he had a great year? Of course. Are the numbers eye-popping? Absolutely. Should that be rewarded more than the guy that took a team that might be a 75-win club and has dragged them into the thick of the playoff race? No. And it's not all about Lindor on the Mets. Other guys are having good years. But he's the one that locked the doors of the clubhouse on May 29th, showed his voice as a leader, held his guys accountable, and started this winning stretch. And since May 29th, the New York Mets are 51-32. It's right there with the Astros and Diamondbacks as the best three teams in baseball during that span. Only teams that have hit 50 wins since May 29th. Lindor took his team from 11 games under to 10 games over. From clear seller to buyer. His MVP case is better than Shohei Ohtani's. And I'm going to keep singing his praises for the rest of this season and probably beyond that because he deserves it. And the last point I'll make on Francisco Lindor before we move to Kodai Senga, because there's some interesting stuff there to close out the show. Buck Showalter was on MLB Network today. He's biased just like me. But he was asked about who should be the MVP. And he said Francisco Lindor because of the impact that having to play and, every single day as your shortstop, bringing that excellent defense, what that does for your club. Buck Showalter knows a lot about winning. He does. He knows about what it takes for a team to win because he has managed thousands of games. And I think anybody that is that ingrained in the game of baseball, that has done the marathon time and again, if they were asked what is more valuable, the guy who is the sole vocal leader of a club, playing elite defense at the most premium position, while carrying the lineup from the leadoff spot, is that more valuable than the DH who's hit a lot of home runs and stolen a lot of bases on the loaded team? And in my eyes, it's an obvious MVP case that is not seen that way at all. And I'll tell you what, I am in text threads with the other writers and content creators we have at Just Baseball all the time who are telling me I'm crazy for being this gung-ho on Lindor's MVP case. And they look at me as biased because obviously I am. I've watched every single game of this season for Lindor. I haven't done that for Shohei Ohtani. But Lindor deserves every bit of accolades that he gets, including an MVP that probably won't come. In the final segment today, though, I want to switch gears and talk about Kodai Senga because there has been some talk today about him coming back in the bullpen at the end of this season. So I'll go over that news in just a minute. First, though, another word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. And this, again, is for all FanDuel customers, not just new customers, where all you do is bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports by checking out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. All right, let's talk about Kodai Senga. He spoke with the media today, and here's what he had to say. Quote, given where we are in the season, realistically, am I going to be able to throw 5-6 innings as a starter? Probably not. Whether they use me as a starter or in the bullpen, that's up to them. I just want to be ready to throw as many innings as possible for the team. Now, Kodai Senga is playing catch. They believe that throwing bullpens is not too far from his future. So he's going to have a series of bullpen sessions. Then he'll face some live hitters. Then he's going to get into some rehab games, maybe make a start or two in Syracuse. And he can't come off of the 60-day IL until September 26th. But if he is following all the steps of his rehab, the Mets believe he will be ready to pitch in some capacity on September 26th. So if that's the case, and Kodai Senga is available to you for 40 pitches out of the bullpen, do you take that? Absolutely. Okay, because Kodai Senga or Alex Young, who do you want in the Mets bullpen? Sorry, Alex. I'd like Kodai Senga with his devastating splitter, please, his ghost fork. I want that pitch in the 8th inning, bridging the gap to Edwin Diaz. Now, when it comes to what happens beyond that, right? Let's just say it is 40 pitches. Maybe it's 50 pitches on September 26th. How can he ramp up in a bullpen role? That's going to be what's tough here. You could have him pretty much set to have a throwing schedule where he's going to pitch no matter what. So let's say he's the guy to go in a playoff game, and it's game 2 is how it lines up. So Luis Severino gets the start, and Kodai Senga has 60 pitches. Well, let's say Sevy goes 7 scoreless. Well, maybe you go to Kodai Senga for an inning to bridge the gap to Edwin Diaz, or maybe even 2, depending. And then after the game, he's throwing some pitches in the bullpen and continuing to build up. Kodai Senga is probably not going to make a playoff start unless the Mets make a deep run. That could mean that we don't see that until the NLCS if the Mets are even fortunate enough to get into the playoffs, get past the wild card, get past the NLDS. But what I'll tell you is their playoff rotation is going to be, for the wild card round if they get there, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, David Peterson. It's those 3 guys. But if you have Kodai Senga available to piggyback David Peterson, where if Peterson runs into some trouble in the 4th inning, you can go to Kodai Senga, or maybe you go to Phil Maton to get you out of a jam in the 4th, and Senga pitches the 5th through the 7th. Whatever it is, he is going to make your team better. And this is exciting to think about the possibilities of having his arm part of the run, however deep it goes. The same thing can be said about Christian Scott. Now, there's some key differences here. The main one is Kodai Senga is a veteran pitcher. Obviously, this is only his second big league season, but a ton of experience pitching in big games in the NPB, a long career. So having him jump into the pressure-packed situation of a playoff race, you're less concerned. Christian Scott, he's still, getting his feet wet in the big leagues. So how much of an impact he can have is definitely up for debate. But he's a little bit ahead of Kodai Senga in the fact that he is throwing off the slope. He is now throwing all of his pitches. I don't believe he's throwing from the actual mound yet, but that's coming any day now. And then he'll have his full bullpens. We'll see how that goes. Then he probably gets some starts in Syracuse. You see what happens. I feel like Christian Scott may be more of a break glass in case of emergency situation. But if he's throwing the ball great, and you had to think about a playoff bullpen potentially, who could be more valuable? Paul Blackburn or Christian Scott? Based on stuff, it really could be Christian Scott. I'm still not sure if this is the year for Christian Scott to make an impact. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I almost feel like the Mets would be better served ramping him up, letting him make a couple starts in Syracuse to close the season, shut him down, have him have a full offseason, and be ready to go because he's going to be a huge piece of the 2025 New York Mets. But it's still a great option to have because let's just say at some point, one of your top three guys goes down and you're hurting for starting pitching all of a sudden. Kodai Senga isn't ready to join the rotation, but Christian Scott is throwing 90 pitches in a start in Syracuse. Yeah, you're throwing him into the fire, but he is a high ceiling option. So it is good to see these guys on the mend coming back. And if you think about how you sort of line up a playoff pitching staff, the math changes. You don't need 5 starting pitchers. I mean, honestly, for a wild card round, you don't even need 4 starting pitchers. So you can plug that bullpen with as many high upside arms as you can. And Kodai Senga and Christian Scott would be pretty high up on that list. I went through and sort of listed the guys that will be on the playoff roster for sure if they get there. Manaea, Severino, Peterson, I think Jose Quintana. Obviously, Edwin Diaz, Jose Budo, Phil Maton. I believe Danny Young is your lefty. And I would think Reed Garrett most likely because he still has really good stuff, even though it's been very inconsistent at times. That's 9 guys. So you still have room for 4 more. There's Adam Ottavino. There's Ryan Stanek. There's Huascar Brazaban. If Daniel Nunez is available, absolutely. From that group, and throw Alex Young into the mix too, maybe Adam Ottavino, maybe Stanek because of his playoff experience. But seeing the room for a Kodai Senga or a Christian Scott or even a Paul Blackburn as starting pitchers that can be used and give you length in the playoffs, I think there's room for all those guys. And we saw the Texas Rangers do a lot of that last season, having starting pitchers come out of the bullpen like Andrew Heaney. Who else was it? Dan Dunning. These guys that just soaked up some innings in the middle of these games, and it helped them get around not really having a great bullpen. There's a world where this Mets team, if the lineup can do a lot of the heavy lifting, if they get a couple of their starting pitchers, and we're seeing the guys who it would be, Manaea and Severino and David Peterson, can they be a version of what the Rangers had when for a large portion of the playoffs, it was Eovaldi and Jordan Montgomery? There's a world where these pieces are going to fit into a way that we never expected, and the Mets could have enough pitching when it's all said and done. It's going to require a lot of ifs, ands, and buts coming in the Mets' favor. But the bottom line for this team is just getting to the playoffs is automatically a win. They're playing with house money. And I think they're a team that can take the house money and actually take us on a pretty fun and exciting ride in October. Again, if they get there, half a game out. They also did pick up a game on the Diamondbacks today. So 3 games back from them, 24 games left to play. We will be here every single day, all the way through it all with Locked On Mets. Appreciate all of you who tune in. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. The goal is to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the season. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. You can follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every single day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out Locked On Sports Today, our show covering everything in the world of sports. It's a 24/7 stream with our local experts from each team, league-wide experts from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV.